All
Welcome back.
right. Yeah. And we are here on a not victory Saturday emergency pod with some of the uh, things that have happened today. First, want to thank Kubota Dealers of South Dakota, Northwestern Mutual, Chris Schenkel Branch down in Sioux Falls, Cubby Sports Bar and Grill, Culver's and Brookings in Watertown, and Jackrabbit Central, and Blue Tide
And
Car Wash.
whiskey.
Whiskey, whatever
This
your
this
drinking
was a
choice
full
is.
bottle at the beginning of the day.
Do you have Buffalo Trace, Chad? I can't get Buffalo Trace where I'm at.
Oh, it's everywhere, Dallas. No.
No, not Mankato.
This is a barrel select.
Ooh, very nice.
So whatever you are drinking,
cheers to you, my friends. This is going to be the least polished version of this show. We're already in straight.
It really is.
Time.
No,
don't expect professionalism from me tonight.
No, I am in the same way. I'm switching. I got seltzers now because I had to back it off a little bit today.
Lighten up.
I had to lighten up. Got to hydrate here.
If you just hopped off a plane, or got back from the moon, whatever, you just found out,
or you haven't been online since 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll start. We'll start, I guess, at the beginning of the day, finding out Griffin Wilde is leaving. Sounds like he's going to Louisville, so that's a bummer.
Good for Griff.
Yeah, good for Griff.
Young
good
man.
for him. Yep, make some money.
Hope you succeed.
As soon as that gets announced and we tweet about it, we start to hear rumblings that Jimmy's on the way out and taking his staff with him. And we all kind of said, shoot. That's not our exact words. And then Bruce Feldman, who is a very respected national journalist, tweeted that Jimmy's gone, taking the staff with him, 5-year deal. Matt Zimmer says lots of players to follow. So
I know what it feels like to be an Idaho fan at this point.
Yeah, it is.
Jordan, I don't know if I have any uplifting thoughts for you today. I'm usually pretty positive. Not a lot.
Well. Look who showed up.
Hey, what's up?
Hey,
we would have thought he was already drinking. Sorry, I just threw you on stage. My bad.
I've been drinking. It's a continuation.
It is. It is. So I don't know how much there is to discuss. It's worth making sure that we get all the stuff that we know out. My assumption was just we've done nothing. I've been glued to my phone, exchanging sad text messages with various groups all day. And I assume lots of people are in the same boat. So thought that was kind of worth getting on to talk about, make sure we're all up to speed, and then maybe try to talk about what's next. It kind of depends on what stage of grief everybody's in. And that's kind of where I'm at too, where I've said multiple times that I had just nothing positive
one thing before we go too far down here.
Yep, sure.
Two things, actually. Brendan, I believe you tweeted you trust Justin Self-Full.
And that's it. Matt's got internet that's a little bit shaky where he's at. So he's probably going to have that kind of thing happening.
It's true. I did tweet that.
Yep.
And look at the background, right? This is the legacy that we get to offer the next coach.
Right. Absolutely. He's back.
Do I have to put you on? Oh, you can put it on.
Yeah, I'm a guest. I'm on my phone. So I'm at a family Christmas in the Blue Cloud Abbey. Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Which is lovely.
All right. So what you said, the first thing you wanted to call out was Brendan's.
Brendan said, trust Justin Sell. Justin Sell has not made a bad hire yet in a major revenue sport. We're going to be okay. We are going to find someone good. And we have a list. We'll go through the list here in a little bit. It's great. The second thing, SDSU fans, and I'm going to swear at you for a second. We need to pull our heads out of our ass, and we need to figure out the NIL collective.
Word.
If Incarnate Word, thanks, Chad. Good segue. If Incarnate Word can figure out a collective, we can figure out a freaking collective. And that means everyone needs to be on board from the top to the bottom, the biggest donors to the smallest donors. If you don't think college athletes need to get paid, I am sorry, that's no longer the reality we live in. So
unless we want to be in D3.
Exactly. So figure it out. We will figure it out somehow. but it's time for the obstructionists to get out of the way because this has to happen, or else we are no longer going to be competitive at the Division I level. So those are my two main points that we have to talk about, or that I want to talk about. I trust.
What
Justin
about
Sell,
potential hires?
out.
We should talk about that.
We'll get into that, but I don't know if you guys want to say anything about those first 2 points or not. We can get into the coaches otherwise. So.
I started talking while I was muted
I
again.
was say you
Hey,
leaned
what's
in. I'm like, what's up, man?
Yeah, surprising no one. I started talking while I'm mute. I think I am probably the most positive person I know in this situation. I haven't talked to, conversed, to text with anybody who's actually positive. Obviously, it sucks, but it's the same thing I said, the same way I felt when all the Mountain West was falling apart and everything else. What's going on? Everything else. If there's anybody who I want running the show while this is happening, it's Justin Sell. I mean, the leadership at the top has been phenomenal. He's made hires that have turned around multiple programs. I mean, look at Coach Greg with the volleyball program right now as the latest shining example. So I don't know. I understand the angst and the concern and the feeling of it. I think personally, we've seen this in basketball so many times, and I think we forgot that it was going to happen in football too, eventually, because of everything else. But we'll get into that later. So, but I believe in Justin Sell. That's my main point. And then, yeah, with the collective, it's not whether you believe in it or not anymore. That's the reality of collegiate athletics. And if you're willing to spend your money on buildings and facilities and everything else, you need to be willing to spend it on the athletes. Now, are we going to be able to fund it at a G5 level or anything like that? No. I wouldn't expect it to be at a FBS, $1 million for a quarterback level, but there are things you can do to keep the guys when you need it. And going forward, obviously that's going to matter quite a bit.
Yep. And there was a question about, didn't we start a collective last year in Frisco? Yes, we did. And they tweeted about the collective for about a month.
Yeah.
Go look at their Twitter page, and then Statement 605 Collective. They have done nothing in that time period. It's a joke. And as far as we know, it's not there.
Yeah.
Internet.
So, no, you came through. You did finally come through.
Yeah, we heard you come through.
Sorry. So little heated on the collective piece.
Yeah, I mean, we need our own Mr. Burgundy, I guess, that walks around through the tailgate, and instead of collecting $5,000 a year for other things, maybe collects $25,000 for NIL. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So do we want to get Dallas? Do you have any thoughts? Or do you want to get into names right away?
I think we can jump into names. I guess a couple things quick. I wanted to finish. One, I know we had a couple people say they just popped on looking for an update. Again, we're here because of the news. It broke this morning that GFW is leaving, and it sounds like going to Louisville. And then shortly after, it started to leak that Jimmy and the entire staff, likely followed by a ton of players, are headed to Washington State. So just wanted to talk about that. And again, I think everybody's got their own opinions. The one thing I wanted to touch on is just how do we look at this as a fan base? Because this hurts like hell. I mean, this sucks, right? It really does. I am somebody with a yellow and blue tattoo. If you're watching and not listening, second generation, hoping my kid's a third generation. And I know, my kid's heading into recruiting here, and I know that staff knows Hudson well. And I definitely took a lot of pride in that and was very encouraged by that. And that was exciting. So this hurts me on a lot of different levels, but we got to keep in mind that this is, if you didn't see this coming, you're an idiot at some point. It's the nature of any sort of business. And especially when you look at something that's a one-to-one jump and you're a coach at any position with a family, and you can go make 6x doing the same thing somewhere else. I don't care what you do, man. You're going to leave, right? That's just, I don't care. Jimmy bleeds blue more than anybody else, but so you can't be mad about that. So now it's just like, all right, how do we get through this grieving process together, and and then figure it out from there? How do we move forward? So that's I guess what I want to talk about today.
Yep. Can I chime in for a second? Let's think back to what happened when Scott Nagy left, or when we lost our wrestling coach. Who was the guy at the helm? What happened? What was the end result? We ended up with a home run hire. We saved our, and especially with basketball, look at what happened when Nagy left. We got that core group of guys to buy in on their brotherhood and stick around. And TJ talked him in that he could be a great coach. Turns out he was a pretty good coach. I think that if we bring in the right guy, we talk to those that are incoming, re-recruit them. You're going to have to recruit your own guys. You're going to have to. But if we get those guys to believe that South Dakota State's more than just the coach, and that it's the community, it's the fans, it's the brotherhood they've already built with the players that are already there, that's going to be what could keep our team together. And unfortunately, we don't got the green and gold collective to help fund that right now. But, that's our missing piece as far as I'm concerned. And, but still, if the guys believe in the brotherhood, they believe in what Justin Sell has brought in before to bring things along. I mean, look at how many people we lost 1 year under Coach Stig. What was 2 years ago? And we lost all of our staff, and we were all going, oh, geez, man. I don't know. Like, Coach Stig's kind of the only coach that's sticking around. Well, all we did was get better. I hope these guys, I know they don't listen to my words, but geez, if somebody out there with some influence does listen to my words, maybe point that out to them, because we've had great success in the past moving forward in times of transition. I'll be
well. That last part you brought up, I think, is super interesting. And I think really important. The thing, how many assistants and the coaching tree that Stig has established. First off, just the coaching tree itself. You've got Hoople Hoople, I think, was a grad assistant at one point. What's his face at Vanderbilt? Coach Lee was under Stig's coaching tree. Obviously Eck down in New Mexico, and it goes on and on and on. Stig's got a hell of a coaching tree, and he's lost tons of coaches, and he continued to hire great assistant coaches. I think it would be super smart to have him be at least involved and ask him from a football perspective, what would you look for, or have him involved in interviewing or whatever. Who do you think the next guy should be? Because he was so good at identifying great coaching talent and growing it and everything else. I think he would be just as phenomenal in helping pick a new head coach, especially when you have, someone with Justin Sell's caliber there already. And we have to remember how attractive of a position this is. Jimmy was one hell of a great coach. This staff was a great staff, but I think we can all agree, going back into like the 2 marker games, there was some coaching decisions that we didn't love and things like that. And I'm not saying that Jimmy was bad or coordinators were bad, but I look at this as an opportunity to potentially get better. I mean, who knows? The next guy could be a better coach. It happens all the time. Think about, we went from Zach Zenner to Pierre Strong, and we do that with players all the time. The potential's there for coaches as well. So I think that's probably maybe why I have a positive look on it. But that's just from where I'm sitting, because this has got to be
inevitable.
Right. It was. And that's the other thing, is this is inevitable. Jimmy's too good of a coach to not eventually have gotten an offer that he was going to make 3 times more than we do. And I don't care how much you love SDSU. If you quadruple your salary for your family, you would be dumb not to take that opportunity. And you got to remember as well, these coaches, when they move, like we see with this, the coaching staff's going with them. Those are kind of part of your brotherhood of coaches that you're bringing with you, that you are improving their lives. You're not just turning down money for you. You're turning down for your money for your offensive coordinator that you're bringing with you, your defensive coordinator that you're bringing with you, who you've hired on and have been with you for seasons. And I think that's something important to remember as well when it comes to this and helping raise those guys up, guys that Jimmy coached, guys that Jimmy's coached with now, has been GAs under him. It makes all the sense in the world that he'd want to help them do better for their families as well. It was inevitable that this was going to happen, and it will keep happening. It just will. Coach Stig, it's such a unique timeline for him to have stayed as long as he did. The results and how they came, that was so unique. That's not today's world anymore. I mean, if anybody's been paying any attention, we watched it happen how many times up north, and that program's still doing pretty okay, I think. I don't think that what Stig built is going to collapse because of one tough go. I think, Brendan, one of the things that makes it so tough is we had unbelievable stability for so long, because and I know that
Nagy, right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I still went through this phase where I could show up as a grown man with my kid at camp and hug my head coach at the door. Like no one gets to do that. It doesn't make any sense. And then even moving along from Stig into Jimmy, there was still the same sense of continuity because, there was a ton of turnover under Stig for a few years there, which you already talked about and did a great job backfilling there. But it still felt like the same group, it still felt like the same guys, it still felt like home. Yeah. And the idea of coming back and maybe having it not feel like home and not feel like the same group anymore, that's scary and kind of weird. But again, I think we need to have a lot of faith in what this athletic department can do. And you're right, that coaching tree. And I think when Matt's back, maybe we should start throwing out some names a little bit that we've heard and that we've thought of, because I think we got to turn to the future here. And I think they'll make a decision pretty darn quick. I can't imagine. I'm just trying to think, like, I've thought about this as a professional. Like, it would take, at my job, it would take us, weeks and weeks to hire low-level positions. And here you have to hire the captain of the ship in, sometimes a matter of hours and make a decision, which is just nuts. I don't know how you do that.
Well, you got to remember a guy like Justin Sell, who has done this as long as he has and has been as interconnected with the rest of this is a hell of a comment from Amar. I mean, the Amar Johnson.
Holy shit!
Thank
Everybody,
you so much
not his mom this
blue.
time.
This is the man,
dude.
Yeah,
I love you, dude.
You're
Number
a
3
beast,
right
man.
there.
Big fan.
But he says if you guys could figure out the collective, you'll be fine. But I think SDSU doesn't understand it, which is definitely costing you players. They got to figure it out pretty fast. Wasn't any urgency trying to get pairs played this past year. That's reality. That's the reality of the world. Like, you can not like it, you can hate it, but that's what's happening. It's the same thing in any job when someone says, well, they're not supposed to do that. Tough shit. They do it all the time.
Yep. This is just
so let's
now.
Figure out how to stop it and make it happen. Right? Like, you can sit there and frown and pout and say, I don't like this. This is the way college is supposed to be. Tough titties, man.
Yeah.
Sorry. Them's the breaks. This is the real world now.
This is the new reality. It's where we're at.
Unfortunately, it is what it is.
Thank you, Amar. Like, this is the stuff we've been hearing all year. And so I'm glad a former player now is saying it. We have
It's
to
hard
figure
to
this
say
shit
that.
out.
He's a player still to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Amar, for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you, Brian, for being here too.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. I'm sorry, my internet. I got off the internet. I have 2 bars right now, so we'll do the best we can. Maybe a little more stable. I don't know. So let's get into names. Let's talk about names quick.
Let's do it.
So I threw out right away Dan Jackson. I've talked about Dan before. Dan was a major influence in getting this thing started 8 seasons ago. Know Dan very well. I 100% support Dan in this position as a recruiter. He's an excellent local recruiter. That's something that SDSU football is all about, recruiting South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Minnesota really hard, and then supplementing from other states. Dan is a charismatic leader, definitely. If you've been around Dan, he brings the energy. He has experience now at Northern Illinois, at Vanderbilt, and then this past year as the defensive coordinator at Idaho. 100%. I think Dan would be a great slam dunk hire. He coached special teams while he was here. He was the recruiting coordinator while he was here. Cornerbacks coach, a former player from the area, Nebraska, and I think really just wants to kind of settle at a place and be stable for a while. Since leaving SDSU, he has moved a little bit. Recently hired as the defensive coordinator at New Mexico with Eck. And I think we'd really be great with Dan at the helm. So that's my first name I'm going to throw out.
Down below, Joey Browner says Curtis Riggs or Zach Lujan. Riggs is out of left field for me. I like that actually, but nobody had been talking about that. But Zach Lujan's been talked a lot, and I think we'd all agree that would be a smash hit hire as well. However, I just don't see you pulling him away from his current contract. Personally, I'd love to see it. Zach was great offensive mind. We loved him as a player. He was a team first kind of guy. I can't say enough good about Zach Lujan. We'd all love to see him back. And I think he'd be on the short list of the candidates. It's just going to be whether he's happy where he's at or not. And I haven't really heard anything to hear that he's not. So potentially he could be a hire. Justin's keeping that list in the background all the time. Let's just be honest. That dude's a step or two ahead. He knows that's important to his job, and he does it as good as anyone in the country. When we should really get nervous is when Justin Sell gets hired away.
That's a hell of a point, Chad, is that let's also give a little bit of credit to whether it's Sell or really anybody in the administration. They're professionals doing their job. This didn't surprise them today. They went, okay, let's get out this piece of paper, and here's the plan that I had. Like, again, it may not have been that formal, but this isn't the first time they've thought of this. There were plans and there were ideas.
Yeah, Chad, you nailed exactly what I was starting to say. Then Amar's comment, we obviously got to talk about Amar's comment when it comes up. So, but that's exactly what I was going to say. He's been around enough where he's got a list. I'm sure that he has who he envisions as the next guy leading this program. I like the Zach Lujan one. I would love Zach Lujan. Just would love to have him. I think he'd do a phenomenal job. He's offensive Jimmy, right? Where he was in the program through the whole thing, the whole way. Was as incredible in my opinion on offense as Jimmy is at coaching defense with his offensive coordinating. I mean, how many times, Dallas, you brought up, I never thought about the play calling when Zach was running it. It would be almost like different flavor Jimmy, but not, because I don't feel like he's nearly as obviously intense as Jimmy was or is. But yeah, I'm sure I'm sure that the higher ups have, the list. And one other thing I want to point out, it is having a president who's supportive of the athletic department the way President Dunn is. And you could just see it from when he was out shoveling for the stands for playoff games and things like that. I have to imagine that's a huge deal when you want to make a quick hire and get things done, that you have a president who's invested in the process and wants success for the program.
So to me, going back to Lujan, though, I just don't know. Oh, Matt, are you trying to talk?
I have some breaking news.
Is it this?
So I just got breaking news, breaking word. I'll break it here. Ryan McKnight is taking over the collective. And so we're going to raise some fucking money. So let's
go. Whoa.
If you have some dollars, Matt just dropped an F-bomb. That's a $5 word for everyone listening to this podcast.
Yep.
Right.
So let's go. Good.
Yep, let's
Finally. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
We
this
have
guy to
a
get
couple
shit done.
players on here, and I love this guy as a player, so he gets some airtime.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, go ahead. You going to read it?
Yeah, sure. Jason Freeman, former all-star outside linebacker.
Big fan
says
of Jason.
Big fan of his game. He says the only thing you don't like about this is the current players wanting to leave. Player transfers with no plan whatsoever. They're losing a coach, not the culture. I agree. Which players fail to realize. SDSU's culture will always remain the same for a lot of these guys, and that's the reason they commit here. Couldn't agree more, Jason. Guys get in the portal thinking the grass is greener on the other side. If anything, this gives those younger guys a chance to reprove themselves under a new staff.
Exactly.
And this is the worst year to leave a program.
Yep.
Pay attention, kids.
Yep.
I'm not some old fuddy-duddy trying to tell you the sky's falling, but this is the worst year to leave a program.
No, what Chad's talking about there, we ranted on this a couple of weeks ago. When you look at the roster reductions in the FBS, do the math, there are now less jobs than there were next year. There will be less jobs next year than this year. There's going to be a whole bunch of people, up to a couple thousand extra in the portal because of that, where FBS teams need to clean house a little bit and bring the roster size down. All right, let's go ahead.
Can we do the $5 NIL swear jar where Brendan gets to talk like he normally does?
No.
Brendan,
Matt, you're breaking up. I heard a yes. Yes.
Hey, so another name I want to bring up, seeing how we've been on Dan Jackson, we've been on Zach Lujan, Curtis Riggs, Brian Bergstrom.
Yep, that's one I wanted to bring up.
Former Dallas, you talk about him then. You talk about
Sure.
him.
We'll talk about Brian Bergstrom. Big fan of Bergie. He was defensive coordinator. How long was he on staff?
4 or 5 years, 6.
4 or
maybe,
5? Was it that many?
Yeah.
Okay. On staff with Stig, defensive coordinator. Phenomenal human being. He got his head coaching gig at Winona State. I actually referred a couple of people to Winona because of him, because of how much I believe in Bergie and how much I like him. He's a younger version of Stig. To me, he is such a just kind, intelligent individual. I don't even know how else to explain him, but he's someone that I very much would trust my kid playing for, and I think he could do a heck of a job. He obviously has shown, that he's ready. He's learned a little bit about leading a program now at Winona. He also took Erickson with him. Matt, who else did he take? Is there others?
He took Spencer, and that was it, I believe.
Okay, Spencer Erickson. All right, so there's a couple of familiar names that would come back. So that was another one worth throwing out. And yeah, I tweeted on Brendan's comment there that same general thought. And I know, Matt, I saw you had one too, that just take a breath, think about it for a minute. If you're thinking about leaving, doesn't mean you can't, doesn't mean you shouldn't, but there's this giant coaching tree that even though they may be new names to you, they are still in the same culture. They're still in Stig's tree that could bring a lot of familiarity back. And these are all very talented people. And if there's any actual active players listening to this, coaches leave when they can't play. The same way a player, if they don't think they're going to see the field, you transfer. Fine, great. Do that. Go be happy and be successful. A lot of these guys didn't leave because they couldn't cut it here. It isn't like that. It's because the next job didn't open up, so they had to take another one and take the jump and do that. And they could be waiting to come back now. So there are plenty of those out there. Any other thoughts on Bergie? Anybody's got?
Just an absolute great human, like you talked about.
Yep.
He's done well at Winona State as well. Kind of a program that has struggled, but he's been good. So Eric Eidsness is another name to throw out there. Just a great offensive mind. And one thing I noticed about Eidsness is our offense, right, would switch what it needed to be. If we had Taryn Christian, he passed the ball. If we had Zach Zenner, he ran the ball. He adjusted to the personnel that we had. It was not one cookie cutter system with him. And I thought that's one of the things that made Coach E great. He has head coaching experience. He was at Southwest State in Marshall, and he did okay there, right? Like, that's a tough place to win in Division II in Marshall. And now he's been at Northern Illinois. Their offense has been all right with him, but maybe he wants to come home. We'll see with Coach E as well. I don't know.
That's a good one. So any other, those to me are kind of like the main names that come to mind. Brendan, what do you got? You're muted, bud.
I
Yes,
hate
Darren.
myself. God, I hate myself for that. Anyways, I just want to comment on all the
I was muted.
Does
I was
Stig
telling you.
does Stig come out of retirement?
Probably not.
I don't think you don't want to do that. And we all love Stig here. But if you're doing that, you are delaying facing the current issue. You're just pushing it back, and that doesn't make it better. I think you need to take this head on and hire a new guy and go from there. I know we all love Stig, and if without retirement, he'd still be here all the time. I didn't say that live, Jason. Okay. I said it off air. So technically it doesn't count.
He's not coming.
It's not my fault. I don't know. He might get let go. Alabama fans
if he got let go, that'd be the only way that would happen. Honestly.
Alabama fans are pretty mad, and we wouldn't have to pay him much. I'm sure the buyout would be.
Here's another good name right there.
Situation.
Look
Shannon Moore.
Actually, what is Shannon doing? So Shannon was also he was a GA when I played. What's he doing at Wyoming right now? I don't even know.
Isn't he tight ends coach or defensive ends coach? What is it? Tight ends? Yeah.
Not a coordinator?
Where is he? Not yet.
Dude, you're getting busted because they can read your lips when you say, gosh darn.
That's not my fault. Quit snitching.
Yeah. All right, I got there's 2 or 3 other kind of left field coaching tree people that I want to bring up, but actually now let's see, let's pull up Dylan. We've had 2 Northern Sun. Whoops, I just put them up. Oh, my
Sorry.
bad. Nope. Okay, go ahead. My hands are up. Nope, that is Chad's job, and I'm screwing it up.
No, you're fine.
All right. So I will let you handle the controls. A couple of Northern Sun names have come up, and those are a little bit. I mean, those are interesting to me. I've often said that when you look at portal, to me, I'd rather go after top end Northern Sun players than I would people that maybe didn't make it at a Power 4 school. So one, Coach O at Augie came up. I forget who mentioned him. Somebody did a little while ago though. That I think is actually, what's that?
It's up here. I'll get it.
Okay, might have been a Wildy actually, or no? Who wasn't? I thought it was a parent.
Yeah. Yep. It was Wildy. Yep.
Yeah, it was a player parent. So
he's not related.
Oh, not? Oh, yeah. Okay. I just assumed. Thought that was very nice to listen to us. So, all right. So you've got Coach O at Augie, very successful, by all accounts, has really created a solid culture there, I think. And I get to hear a lot about that staff when the Mankato West players come back from their team camp and kind of what they do and how they run things and what they expect. So that's one option in state that I think some people might get behind. Another one is Coach Hoffner here at Minnesota State Mankato. I've seen that come up twice now. I actually had Josh Steffens texted me that one. I didn't think about it, and we just had it pop up. That's an interesting too. Hoffner has had tremendous success at MSU here over the years. And I mean, took a program that I don't remember before he came in. If I had prepped here, I could look at what their record was, but I mean, he has been perennial playoff team, has been in the semis 3 or 4 times. I think they've been in the Natty. They've lost the Natty twice, and honestly have done it with a lot of turnover. They've been really scrappy in how they've built teams. They've had a lot of coach turnover, and he still has been a pretty solid option here in Mankato.
So I think overall, personally, I lean towards someone from the coaching tree.
Same.
Right. Because generally I have quite a bit of disdain for the "we need a Michigan man" sort of mantra, but Stig's culture was so unique, right? And is so important, I think, to SDSU football.
Yes.
That having someone who understands that and continues it, I think, is phenomenally important. And on that vein, how about Luke Meadows?
Yep.
O-line coach at Northern Illinois.
Big fan of Luke. I get to see him on the camp circuit every year. He's at Northern Illinois. Now, he was out of coaching for 1 year. I think he was at Kansas, left there and took a year off and is back. I like Luke. I don't know if he's somebody that wants his team or not.
No, one name that hasn't popped up surprisingly is Coach Schleiss, and he's pretty good at offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I stole mine from Matt Zimmer's article that just dropped, to be honest, and he put Zach Center in there.
So
Awesome.
two left field names that I'm thinking about, and one's not even a name because I don't know his name. But the first one is Jed Stugart, Lindenwood head coach right now.
Yeah.
Very successful at USF.
Ooh.
Local recruiting angle. I think he could be a person.
I don't hate that.
Lindenwood. So that's someone just with a local angle. If we're going off tree, if we can't get someone from the tree, then let's go crazy, right? A second guy, the Ferris State head coach, the D2 national champions. Why the heck not? That offense is kind of fun. I don't know his name, but I saw it on a tweet, and I can't use it my phone to look it up right now. But Ferris State head coach.
If we're going off the wall,
off tree,
off the wall,
Tony Anise.
No. Tyler
That's
Roll.
his name.
Tyler Roll.
Yeah, that's on my list.
No way.
Tony Anise.
Dude,
now
you
that's
know how
solving
badly
the wound for the guy that left.
Why wouldn't you call him?
You're right. He's a good coach, probably.
Do you know?
You're not wrong.
What? All right. Let's be very frank and honest here. What's the most important game to the successful season for South Dakota State to make the national title? What game matters the most?
The semifinal game.
The Dakota Marker.
The Dakota Marker.
So you can get home field in the semifinal.
Yep.
That's what matters. If you don't win the Dakota Marker, you don't get home field in the semifinals, and you go and play in Fargo. Have we not learned this lesson yet? Guess who would want to win that game more than anything on the planet, possibly more than former Jackrabbit?
It'd be Tyler Roll. Let's actually back up real quick. Just if there's some people that maybe don't know who that is. Tyler Roll, Tyler Roll to me was North Dakota State's Jimmy. Is that a fair description?
That's fair.
But
although an offensive player versus a defensive.
Yeah. But I mean, just in terms of like, I think the same age or very close. And was that just kind of beloved, bled green and gold, and it was definitely an up and comer. I think wanted to be ready for his own team by all accounts. Spot didn't open up, didn't get it, left in a very ugly transition by all accounts also. And he is now I think the running backs coach at Iowa State, correct?
Yeah, he's a coach at Iowa State.
I think he's the running backs coach.
He was going to be the OC at Tennessee State.
Yep.
Under Eddie George, and then he ended up jumping to Tennessee State and
running backs coach.
I mean, let's be honest. If we're going off tree, probably a fairly similar culture is NDSU. I mean, that's who we've tried to model to catch to beat them. I mean, and who better than the guy who was inside the beast for years? I think he'd be fascinating as long as you don't let him call the offensive plays. I would prefer not to do that. I mean, we don't need Cole Payton every other play, but I think he'd be fascinating. He was a great recruiter up there. I know that. If we're going off tree.
Yeah. But what about, good play caller like Jake Landry, current NDSU offense coordinator. He's been there for 1 year.
He's on the list.
Not a bad
Prior to
call.
that, where did he come from before? Because he was a hot name last year when he went to NDSU. Because he was supposed to be the UND offensive coordinator after Freund left.
He's on the list. Former UND quarterback who's been successful at some successful programs. He was at UMD under Bob Nielsen, Northern Illinois, Wisconsin lacrosse, St. Thomas, and then a year as an FBS position coach at Temple. I think it was at St. Thomas. Yeah.
So
because he was going to go to UND and he got stole by NDSU.
Yes.
I'd love that, but I don't think he's given up his current job.
How about Ray Gronowski?
I
don't think he's given up his current job. I think he's got a good gig where it is, and
I'm all for it, man. I want.
I'd love more Gronowskis, man.
Yeah.
Couldn't make me happier to have them back at DJD more.
They'd have to move though and couldn't commute from Chicago every weekend. So
Yeah, that'd be a bit much.
yeah.
I think they'd fit in at Brookings. I think they like it.
Yeah. What? Okay. So Brad Salem's been thrown out also. Former offensive coordinator at Michigan. I forget where he's at right now.
Kevin also has been drinking
local
all
name.
day.
What else? Do we know Brad Salem? Any thoughts on that name? I can't Google
Not
it.
a terrible hire. I don't know where he's at either. Let me check.
Not a name I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
He's a local guy.
Yeah, he was at Michigan.
He's at Michigan State
when they were. He's still there at Michigan State. Oh.
Well, Brendan sold me on needing a Michigan man, so that could be close.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a Michigan State man, but I'll allow it.
So
close enough.
Riggs is interesting to me. Riggs,
that's a really good. Somebody said that, and it was out of left field for me. But
yeah,
wow, that would be.
About that.
You couldn't get a better guy to help coach your quarterbacks, almost.
Because listening to Matt Zimmer and John Gaskins, nobody's
Brad
listening.
Did go to Memphis.
Anyways,
Sorry.
Right? It was it last year? I mean, they sure made it sound like Riggs was going to go with Kalen to Alabama or wherever Kalen was going next, possibly to Washington, whatever, where he was. And so I don't know, like if he'd be interested or not, or if he likes what he does for Sanford and everything else. So I don't know. His passing academy. Interesting.
Yep, that's the most intriguing name that I've heard that we hadn't talked about yet. Anybody else in the conference? That's honestly an angle I hadn't really thought of much.
Who's coach can we? Well, there's one I think that maybe I spaced out. He was in conference until a week ago. Who would probably make some people's skin?
JD.
Yeah,
JD.
Somebody
Josh
Josh Davis.
We can say it again. Friend of the pod.
Josh
Davis.
Friend. Yes.
That pissed some people off, I'm sure, but that is
it also wouldn't be terrible and potentially could land us an incoming transfer quarterback.
Yep. So
who knows?
So Josh Davis, who was a former player at South Dakota State, was a teammate of mine, was an offensive coach at South Dakota State, went to just South Dakota for how many years? How long's he been there? 3 years?
Two.
Too many.
Two.
Walmart was South Dakota State.
All right. 2 years. Too long. Yep. And went down to USD, was a very successful offensive coordinator down there, and got snapped up by Fresno State just a couple of days ago, which I guarantee his name. And if it could still be being tossed around. I mean, it could still be an option. I would love that to get Josh.
Well, here's the deal. You get head coaching experience at a top tier school, which if your end goal is to end up at a P5, it's nothing better. They can't say, well, he doesn't have head coaching experience. That's what they always say, right? Like, oh, he's only ever been a coordinator. Well, if you move from coordinator to coordinator, still true. Yep. You're going to have to make head coach. Sure, you get a cut in salary potentially. Guys like Lujan, you want to move up, you want to be a head coach. This is the way to get it done, and not a better place to do it at, right? We all know that.
I'm sure this program. Let's talk about where this program ranks in the FCS for desirability of. Can we do that? Can we talk about where that ranks? Or
hell yeah.
Where as far as desirability of jobs in the FCS, there is a potential argument due to pressure up north that you could argue this might be a better job for now than NDSU, because our fan base is becoming more demanding. But there is the argument that as of right now, there's less pressure right now down here, so it could potentially be the best job in the FCS. And Kevin says there's a better job in the FCS.
One of the biggest perks of SDSU over NDSU is that you don't have to put up with that weasel Mike McFeely, in your business all the time.
Or Ross Uglum.
That's a major one. So, yeah.
And it's warmer.
See, but the difference between Ross and Mike is that Ross is positive about the program. Mike's looking to punch holes in your program and show how much smarter he is than you. So that's the difference there.
Yeah, but he also says some stuff. Anyway, never mind. today. He said some stuff.
Neither here nor there, I guess.
It's in our chat.
So in my case, like I said, my top choice is Dan, Brian, Eric, right there. Bam.
So how does the timing of this work? I haven't paid a ton of attention to the coaching landscape. You obviously had some positions filled immediately after the regular season was done. Is this just a lousy time to still try to get somebody? Because I don't know. I mean, does that hurt? How do we feel about that?
I mean, I'm sorry, guys. Going back to last year when after the national championship, right? It was end of January, and there was rumors we were going to lose Jimmy to Minnesota to the defensive coordinator position,
Yep.
right? So I think
There
that's still a month away. Like, we're doing okay. There's still going to be a lot of turnover here in the next month.
It's not the best. It's not the worst.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I'd rather have it now than in the middle of a title run.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be an extra gut punch.
Could you
Right
imagine
there.
if we're waiting for the national title right now and then this news drops?
Ugh.
No, all right. So give me your top three again, Matt. Who'd you have?
Dan, Berge, and Eidsness.
God, I wonder, how does this work? Did people start calling the athletic department? I mean, the second that they hear about this, and then they're fielding calls, and then, Sell's got his secret backup list, and he's reaching out. Like, I'm wondering what the mechanics of this is like behind the scene, because it's got to be intense.
Kevin Marshall thinks we should hire Vinatieri as our coach.
Another Dallas's former teammate. So
No, he's a hell of a lot older than I am.
oh, is it?
Vinatieri's
are you
way older than
being
me.
serious?
Yeah, Vinatieri was long
Sorry,
gone when I was there.
Yep.
He was already a legend when I.
Hey, Dallas, what you up to? You want to coach a team?
I'm actually. Well, you know what? What's funny? I haven't said this
timing.
publicly. I am actually leaving. I did actually leave my job, and I'm looking to figure out what's next. And I'm hoping I can, do some volunteer high school coaching. But
Sorry,
this one's
I
a bit
wasn't
above
trying
my
to
pay
put you
grade.
on the spot at all.
No.
So the desirability that we talked about, the thing that I think about is how much high school football in South Dakota has improved in the last 10 years. Like, again, we have a very established network of high schools that respect SDSU. If you listen to Riggs recently with John Gaskins, I think it was earlier this week, actually, that SDSU is still the top spot in the state and in the region for these Iowa, Nebraska, those type of guys, those caliber of guys that are going large FBS. There's people that are really interested in SDSU, students that are interested in SDSU. And so that's one of the desirability things. And I don't think that's going to change. So the new coaching staff, whoever it is, has to have local recruiting ties to keep these kids SDSU priority number one, in my opinion. Two different things there, but wanted to get that out as well. That was on my notes for this.
Nope, that makes sense. That's awfully important. Former quarterback, number 3, Dan Feldheim, says sometimes in reference to how the search process works, we talked about this being intense, sometimes they can hire a national search firm to bring in potential candidates. In this case, I'm sure Sell already has his list and will reach out to his 4 to 5 guys initially. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And not that we know who any of them are, but what we're guessing with Matt's top 3 there, those 3 names are guaranteed. 2 of the 3 are on the list, if not 3 out of 3 have already had conversations with Sell today.
Mm-hmm.
I would wager a lot of money on that.
I mean, let's be serious. With the way all the other coaching hires have went in the high profile, or wrestling's technically not high profile, but whatever.
It is here.
It is here, right? Yep, in the Midwest. Anyway, with the other high profile hires, he's had a list. It hasn't taken long enough that the people could all leave.
Yep.
The kids, by that is what I mean. I don't think we go another 3 days without seeing a name. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I think in the next 3 to 4 days for sure, we see a new coach announced.
Is that coach announced in 2024?
It better be.
It
better
will be.
Yeah,
it will be.
That's your guess. The coach will be announced in 24.
I guess that's 3 days, isn't it?
That is 3 days, and I think that I think 3 days is it. 4 days, I think, is a max. I don't think it'll go over 4 days.
I mean, there's a lot of, there's going to be some players that have already made up their mind in terms of what they're doing, and that's fine. That is their choice. Yep. But there's a bunch that have not made up their mind, and that's going to make a big difference there. So hopefully they're able to get in, calm people down if anybody's kind of rattled from the news initially, and get them to kind of wait and to meet the new staff and the new head coach.
And honestly, with the right guy, I think people that have made up their mind may potentially change their mind, right? If they see that Dan Jackson comes back and it's the same culture as normal and back to Jackrabbit football as per norm, that's what they signed on for. That's what they're going to get. They probably won't be mad to stick around. The NIL's got to happen. It's got to move along. Needs to move along somewhat fast. So if y'all got some dollars out there that you want to throw at the NIL, Ryan McKnight's on Facebook. You better find him.
Get out there.
And we will, whenever Ryan tweets getting stuff going, we will get that out there as well.
Yeah, we'll help wherever we can.
No, that's Ryan, if you do happen to be listening, I'm really happy that you told us that or told Matt that, because I needed some good news today, and that is definitely good news. Hearing that Ryan's a complete get shit done individual is going to take charge of that. And that's not the only issue going on here. I don't want to confuse that and act like that's a one-to-one thing, but it's a part of this, and it's going to be part of keeping us relevant. And I think the thought that I had when you initially brought this up is we had this really secure, insulated feeling for quite a few years that somehow the rules that are screwing everybody else and causing all these waves and all these problems didn't affect us. They didn't affect South Dakota State. It felt like we were just insulated from everything. That's not the case. We knew that wasn't going to continue forever, and it's not now. And that's gonna, it feels like this transition is going to make that even more real and more of an issue, so that we have to address it immediately. So I want to make sure that we don't want to act like we're drawing this direct correlation of like, oh, if we had this wouldn't be going on right now. No, this was going to happen anyway. This makes sense. Jimmy's too talented of a coach. This whole staff is very talented. As we all feel all this pride when we get national attention for South Dakota State football. Well, guess what? Other coaches, other staffs, other ADs see that stuff too. And it just stands to reason that somebody's going to come in and snag them.
Yep. This is just part of it. So yeah, I got to go, guys. I got to get back to Christmas.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Good time to call it. And with that, I think we'll end as always.
Yep. Hey, we have 3,700. I know the Twitter numbers are sketchy, but guys, I feel so good knowing that everyone else wanted to talk about this too and to heal a little bit. 3,730 people right now live online. So thank you for hanging out with us.
All right. And with that, as always, go big, go blue.
Go Jacks, guys.
Jacks.